para los negocios de importación. Esta es nuestra segunda sesión y vamos a ver el tema de cultura o en inglés, culture. Bueno, ya me conocen, soy Liliana Quipusco y para comenzar vamos a ver las consideraciones del curso. Esto ya lo vimos la semana pasada, pero de todas maneras le vamos a volver a dar una repasada. You must speak English during the entire conference. La segunda, you can ask questions during the course of the conference. Puedes realizar preguntas durante el transcurso de la conferencia. Third, o tercero, I will appreciate you sharing anecdotes, experiences, or problems related to the subject in order to help you. Les voy a agradecer mucho que puedan compartir anécdotas, experiencias o problemas que tengan para ver si podemos ayudarnos. Fourth, o cuarto, at the end of each session, we will have an exam of 10 multiple choice questions, that is, for alternatives. Al final de cada sesión vamos a tener un examen de 10 preguntas de opción múltiple con 4 alternativas. ¿Ok? Entonces ahora sí, empezamos en inglés. So, first of all, what is culture? So, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, culture, it is a way of life, especially about general customs and beliefs of a particular group people at a particular time. Let's see that it says a particular group, so it is not one person, it is a group of people. Okay, for example, an American culture has been imported into Peru. According to Oxford Dictionary, culture is the idea, customs, and social behavior of a particular people or society. Again, it says people or society. That it means that it's not one person, it's a group of persons. Okay? Okay, so next. Why is culture so important for business? I want you to think about why it could be so important for business. So last week we were talking about greetings, and we said that the most important thing about greetings was to know about what time was in our clients or providers country. So in here, for a culture, what it will be important for input? It is important because there are multiple factors that affect all business. There is production that affects business. There is how marketing works. For example, it's not going to be the same marketing in here in Peru as in another country, for example, Ecuador. Let's see an example of this, of marketing and production. KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken in Peru, is selling the fried chicken with some lentils, menestra. So in here they sell that, but in the United States they are not going to sell that because that is not part of their culture. So we can see there how this factor of culture, of how we eat, what we eat, affect business. Another one is management, finances, beliefs, and superstitions. For example, for finances could be how the way of payment when you do transactions with international people. Usually with Peruvian companies, we do the finance, when we do the way of payment, we usually use a bank. But sometimes when you work with Chinese people, they want just a transfer. So for us, it is like more risky to do a wire transfer, do a bank. We wanna do like an LC, like use a document with the bank so they can support that they will give us a product. Another one could be beliefs and superstitions, that this is more likely to be related with Japanese people. When we work with Japanese people, they are very superstitious about a lot of stuff, about that you cannot talk in a loud way, that you cannot dress with white. For example, in here, when we dress with black, it is when we go to funerals, but in Japan the funeral color is white, so that is superstition, that is a belief. So because of all of this, we really need to study the culture of the country that we will work with. Next, we have, again, why is culture so important for our business in imports? So it is just business. Do we need to create a relationship? This will depend on who we're working with. Another one is male chauvinism. In Spanish, male chauvinism would be machismo. Another one is formal or informal, how we talk to people. When do we need to use formal? When can we start using informal communication with other countries?
Before I proceed to talk about Peruvian culture, I would like to make a disclaimer. I'm about to talk about some stereotypes and how other people around the world see us. This not means that we are all exactly the same. This is just the way of some people in other cultures think about us. How we are. Are we respectful or trustful? Well, for us it's very important the rank, status, education, and of course the age of the other person. It's always important to show respectful older people. How loud we are. Generally, we talk very softly. We are not that loud, but it's not like this in other countries like Russia, for example. They are really loud for speaking even if they are not angry. That's the way they talk normally. Are we direct or indirect? We usually say things between lines, not so directly, and for other cultures this may be disrespectful, because they may think we want to make fun of them. Maybe one of the reasons we are slowly when we do businesses is because we like haggling or begging, especially prices, to get what's the best for us. And this could be a difficult aspect to work with other cultures where people are more difficult to change position. Another fact to take in account about Peruvian culture is the punctuality. This is a very particular thing about us. For example, if we set a meeting at 9 o'clock a.m., we may start that meeting at 9:15 or 9:30, but we are going to be in that place at 9 o'clock a.m., and that's what we expect from the people that have to be in the meeting too. Punctuality is really important in so many cultures around the world, and we have to be very careful about it, especially in businesses. One last thing to consider is the greeting. Do we use kiss or handshake? Well, when we are in a formal context, we generally use a handshaking. However, sometimes, maybe in a more informal context, we can use one kiss to greeting. It's important to know that in some cultures men cannot greeting women with kisses, and in many others men can greeting with 1, 2, and even 3 kisses to others men. This is why it's so important to study the culture of the person we're going to make businesses with.
So there are many countries in the world, but we are going to talk about the main cultures. Okay? So I have separated between Europe, Japanese, Europe, Asian, and American. So first, how is the culture in France? So how do we greet each other? According to internet and other, not just internet, but I have seen this in some studies that have analyzed about how other cultures work with. They say that usually in France they do a handshake and they use a title and a surname. For example, in here I would be Señorita Kibusco, but in France it would be Madame Kibusco. So when we go to a place, to another country, or even if we work here in our country but work with other people that are coming from other countries and other cultures, it is very polite to at least learn how you use the title. For example, in this case for France, for Mr. it is Monsieur, and from a lady, it is madame. Another is that they really appreciate when you try to speak their language. I have talked to a couple of French people, and they are so grateful when you at least tell them bonjour when you are saying hello, and then you can start speaking in English or in Spanish. And sometimes they prefer if you ask them like, can you talk in Spanish or English? Because they sometimes, because of cultural, like we have problems with Chile, they usually have problems um, with the United States. So French people really avoid using English. So you may ask them first, do you want to talk in Spanish or do you want to talk in English? And they will tell you. Carmen says, I think that in business, it is a must knowing titles before starting business meeting. Yes, that's right. That's why we were saying that we need to know about the other culture that we're going to talk to, that we're going to work with. So it is a matter of respect. So the other culture, the other person knows that you're really interested in their culture. And you will see when you talk to people from other cultures, they will greet you in your language. For example, I was telling you, hola, buenos días, and gracias, y adiós. They were the only words that they knew, but they were very expressful to tell you that they knew these words. So you will know that they are very interested in having an appreciation for your culture and trying to get to know you better. So another country is the United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, it is usually a handshake for a greeting. Also, they use title and surname. It is the same as in English. It could be Mr. and Mrs., Miss, Miss. Another is that they are very punctual. They like to be in time and that you have to be in time. Also, there is like a small talk before business. Usually, when you talk to people from the United Kingdom, they are not going to ask you personal questions. This is small talk before, like when you're waiting before it starts a business meeting, they will talk to you, but mostly they will talk about the weather instead of personal things. So you might try to not talk about religion, not talk about the sports, but maybe you could talk about the weather. Another is that they are not too personal. They might, like I said, talk to you, but do small talk, but not asking you personal things. Another country is Germany. In Germany, you may say hi with a firm handshake. Also, you may use a title and a surname, and for the language, it will be her for a male and Frau for a female. They are also really punctual. Um, we know these stereotypes that German are really like to be on time, so we usually use by the term German time. Also, they are really bluntness, and their bluntness shouldn't be perceived as a rude thing. Do you know what bluntness is? Bluntness, it is when you speak like really straight and you are really clear when you speak. So in Spanish, bluntness will be franqueza. Another would be there's a clear separation between personal life and business. For example, with the German people that I have worked with, they are really detail orientated. So if you ask them, I want this 20 list of details that you mentioned in your quotation, or when you wanna buy something, they will give you those 20. When you talk to them on the phone, they will be really nice to you, but they won't be so. personal as you may be when you talk to another Latin American person that they will tell you how are you, how's everything in your country. So they are not like that. They will tell you how are you, I think you're okay, but they are not that personal. They don't get too personal. They like really differentiate business and life, personal life. Another country is Russia that a lot of people might be really interested in because of the soccer match. So in Russia, it is very important to do a firm handshake and also make eye contact. So you have to look at the person when you are shaking their hand. Also, it is just a title and a surname too. They like to be really, really direct, and they really expect you to be really punctual. Another countries are Italy. In Italy, it is usually for business encounters to greet each other with a handshake. Once you have formed a relationship, and this is very important, they might even press cheeks. Press cheeks is when, like, you're gonna give a kiss to the person, but you don't give them a kiss in the cheek, so their cheek and my cheek would just do a little press. So I have seen that this is not only acceptable for between male and women and women, but also between males. They tend to give a kiss to other men, and this is natural for them. They use titles and surnames also. Their business are really relationship driven. They like to talk a lot. They're really expressive and they're really loving people. They like to express you that they care for you. And also the negotiations with them can take time. Like us, they really like to think about things before buying. They like to go over and go over and go over and think what is that if they can maybe make a better deal or maybe they can change something. So they like to take their time before they go and they say yes, I want this. Another country is Spain. For Spain, they usually greet each other with a handshake. And in here in Spain, when a relationship has formed, they give two kisses, one in the right and one in the left. So, but this is again like in Italy, once a relationship has formed. So for Italy, it's pressing cheeks, and for Spain, is two kisses. Okay? They use title and surname, like in Spanish, it will be señor and señora, and they like to build a relationship. They are really also very talkative. They like to talk to people. And this is a problem that I have encountered when talking to Spanish people. They talk at the same time. For example, when you're in a conference room, usually for Peruvians, we go like the chief and two other people are gonna help. And for them, they also come in with two people, three people. And usually we tend to be quiet when someone is speaking, but they speak at the same time. There will be the chief talking, and then the other person that work with them will talk, and they will talk, and you will hear like they are talking in like the both at the same time in front of each other, and you are like, it could be really hard to, it could be confusing and really hard to focus on who do I need to listen to. Another country is Japan. In Japan, we do a handshake and a bowing. A bowing, do you know what is a bowing? A bowing is when people um, put their heads like to the front, like they do like this. So that's a bowing, reverencia. It is very usually to Japanese people do the bowing. I have seen they don't do the bowing so hard. They don't go so in the front. but they do like a little bow because it is their culture. So they make that. So you, when you talk to them, when you greet them, if they bow to you, you, as a respectful, for a polite thing to do, it will be to give the bow back, and they will later say hi to you in your language and maybe do a handshake. So for Japan, it is the same. Use a title and a surname. If you can search up the title in Japanese, it would be great, or it could be English because every Japanese person that would come to another country to make businesses, they will definitely speak English. And this is a good thing because they are really people that like to work hard on what they do, so their English usually is pretty good. So we won't have any kind of problems trying to listen to them. Another is they like, oh, this is a really important thing. When you meet Japanese people, and not just Japanese people, Asian people in general, it is important that you receive and give a business card with two hands. So, for example, when you give a business card, let's imagine that this is a business card, you will give them with two hands, and when you receive them, you have to receive them with both hands. So, you should never, and this is something Peruvian people usually do, is they take the business card, they read it, and they put it in their pocket. That is no for Japanese people. You have to have the business card in your hand, and you have to, while they're talking to you, you have to read it, and you cannot put the business card in your pocket or somewhere else. You have to keep it in your hand. And if you are in a business meeting and they give you and you sit, you have to put the business card, the person that gave you, in front of your desk or in the table that you're sitting with. For example, if I'm sitting here and this is the table that we're working in, so I will have to have the business card and put it here, in here. So they see that we are not hiding it. So we are really interested, and we are showing respect to the other person. Another another characteristic of Japanese culture is that their seniors are the ones that lead. So the most older people, or the people with the highest rank, is the one that is gonna lead the meeting. So I have worked with Japanese people, and even though I was in the meeting, I was the person with the highest rank, or the person that that had more experience. Um, the Japanese people tend to look or see or listen to what the oldest person in the room is saying. So, for example, I was working and I was the leader of the group, but there was next to me a person that obviously looked older than me, but it was a senior person, and they would listen, and they like really pay attention what the older people is talking. So that is um, really important for them. It is a really culture thing that they really respect the older people. Another country is China. Usually for Chinese people, they greet with a handshake. They use title and surname. They speak English when they come to the business. It is usually they speak English. But in here, it will be a little hard to understand them. Why? Because sometimes we notice that they cannot pronounce the R. So they, instead of saying the R, they say L. So instead of saying, for example, instead of saying empresarial, they would say empresarial, like with an L. So it is very difficult when you work with Chinese people that have this problem. So that's why you have to sharp your listening skills, So when you talk to these persons with Chinese people that talk in English, you can understand them. And it may take you time. For me, it was a process of learning how to understand Chinese people. A couple of years ago, I studied Chinese for approximately 1.5 years, Mandarin Chinese. So my teachers, the first 4 months, they speak Spanish, but as I progress in my Chinese level, I had other people as teachers, not just my first teacher. So these other people, they didn't speak Spanish, they only speak English. So I was learning Chinese in English because my teachers just speak English and Chinese. And it was really, really hard because instead of saying, I'm sorry, this is like, instead of saying words, they would say work, work, and we were all the students were like, what are you saying? So it was really hard, but with time, with after I think a couple of months, it would be like 2 or 3 months, we were able to sharpen our listening skills in English, so we would understand what they were saying, and this was really helpful for me for when later from when later I work with Chinese people. Another characteristic is that we need to receive and give business cards with two hands. This is the same as Japanese, as I told you. You have to give the business card with two hands and receive them with two hands. And once you have it, and you're gonna sit on a table and start a business, put it in your table, in front of your table, no, in front of you. And another one is they like face-to-face communication. This is really important. For example, when you go to, for example, a couple of weeks ago was the Expo Plus, and in this expo, there were a lot of Chinese companies. So they really like to not just talk to you by the phone or by email. So they like to do face to face, and they will tell you that they would like to visit you. So when I was here, when I was in the Expo Plus, I was trying to do a sale to buy some machines, and we were the person that I was working for, the company that I was working for, um, they just wanted to do everything via email, but this Chinese guy, he wasn't gonna accept that. He wanted to visit the factory that I was working with, and not just that, but he also said that he had a client that already had bought his machines, and that he really, really wanted to go visit his client. So they like to build relationships with people with the people they are working with. So he had such a good relationship with his client that his client was able and he was happy to receive another future client of the Chinese provider. So it is very important. Another country would be the United Arab Emirates. So like I said, we have to be really careful when we speak to or when we work with cultures that are really different from us, especially because, like we were saying, male chauvinism can interfere like really, really hard. So, in this case, with the United Arab Emirates, we use a handshake, but we have to do it with the right hand. Okay? Why is this? Because in Islamic culture, the left hand is used for impure task. For example, with the right hand, they eat because there are a lot of Islamic countries that they eat with the right hand. They eat with their hand. So the right hand is for eat, and the left hand is for personal hygiene. So when you go to the bathroom, you will use your left hand. So that's why it is considered an impure hand. So you always have to use your right hand, okay? Another characteristic is that they use the title and then the surname. So when you speak to them, you may say Sayyid for male and Sayyida for a female. You have to be very careful because in Islamic cultures, they usually you are not allowed to talk to a female, so you will have to ask in advance to the person that you are talking to if you are able to speak to the women with the if you are able to speak to a woman that will be in your conference and your business meeting. Another is the use of telephone during meetings. We may have seen in movies maybe that we also see Islamic people or Arab people that it could be happening something really bad and they're on the phone. It is a stereotype, but it is a stereotype that is usually true. So they say that when you talk to them, when you're in a business meeting, you might usually see Arab people like you're talking like I am talking to you, and they will be like sending a text message, and there will be I don't know maybe three people, and one of them will be like talking on the phone. So it is pretty normal. It is not unpolite for them. It is like a normal thing to do. Another thing it is another people another I'm sorry another country is India. So for India, it is usually used as a greet, gentle handshake. Another is that you might use a title and a surname. Again, if you work with Indian people, they might usually speak English, so you might say Mr., Miss, or Mrs. Another characteristic is that you also for India have to give things with the right hand. So always use the right hand. And another characteristic is that they usually won't say to you no because no, it is an unpolite thing to say to another person. So, for example, if you say to them, I don't know, this product is 100 soles. Do you wanna buy it? They will, and if they are not able or they won't want to pay for 100 soles for this, they won't say to you no. They will use another words like maybe or we can talk later. So when you speak to Indian people and you hear that they say maybe or later, it means that it is a no, but a hidden no between the lines because for them to say to you no, it will be impolite. So later, another country is Australia. In Australia, they use a firm handshake as a greeting. Also, they use title and surname. They speak English. They are very punctual and a really unique characteristic. It is that they are really friendly when they communicate with you, but when they start doing business, they get like really serious and really extremely direct. So it is important when you work with Australian people that if you are talking friendly or it is not a serious thing that you want to say to them, you say to them that this is like a small talk or friendly conversation. And once you want to start doing the business meeting, you tell them that it would be the starting of the business meeting so they can like change their mood and pass from friendly to direct. Another country is Canada. Canada is they use as a greet a firm handshake, and they use title and surname, and they are very punctual. They also like to make a lot of eye contact. And finally, we have the most uh, common country that we work with. Usually, when I have worked with in companies doing international trading, It is about like 80% of the exchange, the trade, that it is done with American people. So it is really, really important for us to know how to work with them. So for the United States, as agreed, is just a firm handshake and to make eye contact when you say hello. And also they tend to be really friendly, and they like to do small talk before you go in a business meeting, like people from the United Kingdom. They like to talk about the weather. They even might ask you about how are things in your country, especially because they are really interested in politics. So they might not ask you like straight which political party you like, but they might ask you related stuff about economics. How are economic things in your country? Is it okay? Is the business going well? Is it going bad? Another characteristic is that they are really direct. They like to go to straight to the point. So, for example, when you send an email, we usually tend to be like really make long phrases like, for example, buenos días, en el presente correo le mando la solicitud de tal cosa, but they, as Americans, when they send you an email, they're really direct. They will send you hello or hello, Mrs. Kipusco, or hello, dear, and they will go straight to like, this is the price, this is the product, this is how I'm gonna give it to you, and just like go straight. Why? Because there is a phrase, a catchphrase that we might hear it many times, not just in movies, but also I think the Interbank uses too, that it is time is money, el tiempo es dinero. So that's why they don't like to be so to extend themselves when they are talk. They like to go direct. So next we are gonna see a little video. Okay, so I don't know if you have seen the TED Talks. So there is a TED Talk from Chris Smith that he talks about humor and culture in international business. So I'm gonna play it. Last week, you had problems listening to the video, so I want you to like turn your volume up, suben el volumen to your video so you can hear it. Okay.
I'm going to talk to you about why cultural difference actually are the management of perception, or to put it differently, why culture matters when we're working internationally. First, a bit of an introduction about myself. Who am I? As you can see, my name is Chris, my last name is Smit, my nationality is Dutch, and as they say, if you ain't Dutch, you ain't much. Or to put it somewhat different is, as a finishing touch, God created the Dutch. I know one more, which is more along the lines, more in reality, and that is the gods created the universe and the earth, and the Dutch created Holland. Maybe that's somewhat closer to the truth, because 2/3 of the country is actually below sea level. Now, if the country is below sea level, and where do I live? I live, of course, in a windmill like all the Dutch do. Where's my windmill located? It is below sea level. Like I said, 2/3 of the country is below sea level. And what do I normally wear? My wooden shoes and the traditional Dutch dress. But being in front of a significant civilized crowd, I decided to wear something different. Now, you can look at this introduction and ask yourself, what's the point? I'll tell you what the point was with this sort of introduction. I was trying to sort of border on stereotypes. Stereotypes that you might be missing about the Dutch are maybe the color orange, the fact that we never will win the World Cup football or soccer for the Americans, and maybe the red light district in Amsterdam, stuff like that. You can go to the Americans and talk about stereotypes there as well. What comes to mind first, potentially, maybe the word big, or the word hamburger, or trigger happy, stuff like that. Then you could go back to Europe and talk about the Italian stereotypes, or stereotypes about the Italians. What comes to mind? Maybe the word mafia comes to mind, mamma mia, the hand gestures that the Italians are so fond of, stuff like that. Are they all true or not? Are they all true or not? I think that stereotypes sort of display a general trend in society, and that's maybe more or less what culture is about. But besides from talking about stereotypes, my introduction is also based on humor, or at least I was trying to be funny. I'm not sure if I succeeded. I won't even ask you as well. I'm not going to shoot myself in the foot there. But if I show you this image here, and I would ask you, how would you describe the typical British sense of humor? So not per se what he is doing, but the typical British sense of humor. You might come up with ironic, with dry, self-deprecating humor. A Brit can stumble and fall and look back and say, hey, that was funny of me. Stuff like that. Contrast that with this person, and for those of you who do not know him, he's a Dutch comedian, singer, songwriter, presenter, quite a talented guy. And if you would characterize the Dutch sense of humor as opposed to the British sense of humor, you might come up with statements like blunt, direct, sexually connotated, and the Dutch tend to make fun of others rather than themselves. Whether they're here or not, that doesn't make much of a difference. And then finally, if you sort of wrap it all up, and if you would ask, if I would ask you, how would you characterize the German sense of humor, then it might come to mind, and I see somebody nodding already, no, they have no sense of humor. Is that true, however? Well, fundamentally, of course not. The Germans also have a sense of humor. But the contradiction in terms here is that humor for the Germans is a serious thing. Humor for the Germans is a serious thing. In other words, you don't start something serious with a joke. So have a meeting, you don't start a meeting with a joke, because why would you undermine the seriousness of the meeting by starting it with a joke? There's a time and a place to be funny, according to the Germans. 3 countries, the UK, the Netherlands, and Germany, geographically relatively close to each other, and still they have a different sense of humor. I believe that jokes don't translate in language, and also that they don't translate in culture. So if humor is already not culturally neutral, my question to you to ponder on is, what is culturally neutral? I've done this work for about 18 years, and I haven't found anything that is culturally neutral. It touches us every day, and very often we don't really see it. But first of all, before I continue, there is really nothing good or bad about culture. There are only differences. That's important to realize. And understanding cultural differences are often the determining factor when you're doing business, typically when you're doing business internationally. The word culture has been mentioned a couple of times. Let's sort of put a frame around this and a definition. The collective programming of the human mind. In that definition, there are 2 words are important. One is collective, and the other one is programming. When we're talking about culture or cultural differences, we talk about groups of people and not about isolated individuals. And the second word that's important to realize in this definition is that the word programming is there because you're not born with your culture. Culture is so-called taught behavior. So collective programming of the human mind. Showing you an image here, my question to you is, what do you see? If you're like most people, you would see a face with the glasses, the nose, and the mouth, and a part of the chin and the neck, right? But if you read it diagonal and pause and wait a little longer, you would see that you can also read the word liar. The L, the I with the dot on the I, the A, and the R. So pausing and waiting and maybe looking a second time at a different culture might actually teach you a lot more. As I said, culture is about the management of perception. If you read the following quote, it's important for a manager to know the exact answers to most of the questions that his subordinates may raise about their work. I give you 2 countries and 2 percentages, the United States and France. Match up the countries to the percentages. All right, the answer is 18% for the United States and 53% for France. What this means is that if an American worker, if you want, goes to his manager, asks him a question to which he doesn't know the answer, the American worker is quite okay with an "I don't know." While in a country like France, for instance, the answer "I don't know" from management doesn't give him a lot of credibility. So the expectation of a French manager is that he or she is much more knowledgeable about the content or stuff that he is actually managing. To explain this, we need two cultural dimensions from Professor Geert Hofstede's model of culture, one being power distance or hierarchy, and the other one being uncertainty avoidance. Let's start with the first one. Dealing with hierarchy. You could argue that all societies are unequal, but some are more unequal than others, or to put it differently, all animals are created equally, but some are more equal than others. I've given you here a list of countries: the Netherlands, Belgium, the UK, Norway, and China. Quickly make up in your mind which country you actually think scores highest, or in which country would actually score lowest. The answer to that question is, you might be right about China, you might have guessed maybe the Netherlands being the lowest one, but in this case it is Norway. Quick word about these numbers is that anything more than 10 points difference is something that you would experience internally when you would go to that specific country. So if a Dutchman would go to Belgium, the Dutchman would experience that there is a stronger hierarchy in this country than in his own country. If the Belgian would go to China, the Belgian would actually experience that there is a stronger hierarchy in China than in his own country. Now, how does this work in reality? You see two triangles, and on your left-hand side you see weak hierarchy or flat and egalitarian. On the right-hand side of the slide you see that there's strong hierarchy, and it's called steep, and it's sort of hierarchical. Notice that the circles are equally in size on the left-hand side, and the top dog, if you want, on the right-hand side is bigger than lower at the bottom. Suppose you have this situation whereby peer-to-peer workers, say somebody from the Netherlands, asks a question to his coworker in China: "Can you give me an update on this and this process?" What do you think is going to happen? It's highly likely that it will go up the hierarchy. This will take time. The perception that the Dutchman on the left-hand side might have of his Chinese colleague is that he might be lazy, he doesn't know what he's talking about, why is this taking so long, right? Eventually, the answer will come, but it just takes time, and perceptions are already shaped. Now turn the situation around, where you try to get the Chinese to ask the Dutchman, "Can you give me an update on this and this project?" What do you think will happen? The Dutch, having a relatively low hierarchy, has the tendency to answer directly, and with the result that the Chinese colleague will actually wonder, how did you come up with that answer so fast? You're probably trying to cut some corners, and you didn't give me the right, correct answer. I'm going to ask you again. Hence the blue line going back that way. The second dimension to explain the difference between the United States and France is uncertainty avoidance. As they say in Germany, everything is forbidden unless it's allowed. You can continue like that, but in the UK everything is allowed unless it's forbidden. The total opposite there. And in France, everything is allowed even if it is forbidden. And mind you, there is a fourth one as well, which is the Dutch version. In the Netherlands, everything is tolerated, even if it is forbidden. There you go. This talks about the amount of rules and structure that cultures and people within these cultures appreciate and would like to have. Again, which countries from this list, the Netherlands, Uruguay, Belgium, the UK, and Germany, do you think needs them or has or needs the most structure and detail? And which country do you think has the least amount of structure and detail? This is a very difficult dimension to actually understand, and the answer to this puzzle is that the UK scores the lowest of this list, not in the whole list of countries, and that Uruguay has a score of 100. Again, 10 points difference is something that is significant. The UK, a country that doesn't have a written constitution, but goes with common law, for instance. And For the Belgians present here at this presentation, the score of 95 explains to some extent why all Belgians are born with a brick in their stomach. Does that sound familiar? For a lot of you, it might be. Okay, if we sort of put that in a graph and in a practical example, what does that mean? When we look at project management and doing business, different cultures deal with project management in different ways. So on the horizontal axis, there's time, and on the vertical axis, there is action and implementation as a function of time. The line that you currently see there is just for reference there. Germany, first Germany. How do you think the line of Germany will run? Well, Germans get their act together, they form a group of people, of highly specialized people around the table, they sort out all procedures and eventually will come up with a relatively rapid implementation, something like this. Now, when the Americans and the Brits come to the table asking the Germans, what are you doing? And the Germans look up annoyed at the Americans and say, we're planning. And the Americans go, well, what good is that for? Because the Americans have more of a just-do-it approach, a trial and error approach, and get going. And if you don't understand it at first, only then you start reading the manual. Continuing like this, take the country France, but you could also substitute here Spain, Italy, Iran, China, India, countries like that. The line is somewhat different, and I know it usually generates a laugh, but it needs a little note in the margin here, is that what the line should actually look like is pretty much at the beginning here, like a small tremor around the German line. So not with a big earthquake, but that's just a shortcoming of PowerPoint. My apologies for that. So what you see in a country like France is that there is a preference for doing things organized, but sometimes it just doesn't work, and that is because of the elbow work and the hierarchy and the in the corridor backstabbing political games going on. That's what the tremor is about. Now, finalizing this slide with the Dutch line, not that the Dutch are so important, it is just that the line is so significantly different from the Dutch, from the rest of the countries here. And the Dutch are known for their polderen or poldermodel, the Dutch word, or their consensus building. And the line sort of takes this shape. Right? And what you see going back in time is not really going back in time. It is more that it is doing project management with growing insights. So what we have decided yesterday could change today because of new gained information again. All right. Wrapping it up, this presentation, with a quote from Carl Jung is that everything that irritates us about others can actually lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. Thank you.
Basically, in this video, he talks about stereotypes. He says that we usually tend to see other cultures with stereotypes. So he really mentioned two important things. One is that we have to learn that culture is not about isolated persons. It is about a group of people. And also that culture is really, really related, like as we said here on the beginning. It is about customs and beliefs. So it is not something that you are born with. It is something you learn from your friends, from your parents, from the people you live with. So culture is a group of people, and the beliefs and the characteristics and the factors inside a culture are learned. So that's why we tend to do stereotypes. So when we talk to people, we have to really understand that we may know that French people, Russian people, Japanese people, Indian people are in a way, but it doesn't mean that everybody is going to be the same, because not everyone in Peru is as stereotype says. So finally, as a final phrase that it really gets to me from Chris Smith, from the person that did that TED Talk, it is that understanding cultural differences are often the determining factor in success or failure in a business. So we have to really learn and understand how different our culture and the culture from the other people is. We have to ask if we have a question, we have to study beforehand, so we will have a highest factor of success in our business. Yes, it is another word. It is, he said, trying to understand ourselves and learning more about groups and around the people. And there is an also, when you see the video at the end, it says, uh, when we see our flaws, we will learn from, when we see what we don't like from other cultures, is when we learn more about ourselves. So it is very important. It will be it will be all for today. I want to thank you for your attention. You really helpful, Carmen. You helped me a lot. You give a lot of information. Um, and I will see you next week with the third session. Okay. So thank you. Bye bye.